Live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. This is Fox 12 Now. Thank you for joining us. We are live streaming here out of the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom. We do this every weekday. We start at 1 o'clock and we cover a wide range of topics here on this show. Today, we're talking about a topic that has, well, been on the minds for a lot of people for many decades in the Northwest, but specifically in the 80s and going on through that. I'm talking about Diane Downs. Diane Downs, in case you don't know, was accused and convicted of murdering one of her children and attempting to murder two of the other ones. There's a lot that was involved in this. It was a very huge case. And yesterday, Diane Downs was back in the news for seeking parole and to have her conviction overturned. There's a lot to analyze with that. We want to go into this a little bit and really discuss who she was or who she is, what she did, why it matters so much, and what's happening next. And to do that, we have probably one of the best people possible to be joining us for that, and that is Ann Jaeger, here right now, author, reporter during all of this, creator of a documentary. I mean, so many different things, Ann, that you've done, and I really appreciate you having time to be here to talk to us about this. And, you know, I mentioned the perfect person to really break this down for us, because you were there, you were covering this. You were on the scene, and, you know, I think to start off, for people who may not know who Diane Downs is and what she did, would you mind giving us an overview and just for anybody who doesn't know, why this matters so much?
Well, Diane went on a sightseeing trip with her three children. They were all under the age of 9. And she said she was going to go and visit a friend. And on the way from visiting a friend late at night, it was about 9:30 at night, she said she saw a man flagging her car down in the middle of the road. So she stopped. School day the next day, but she stopped. And apparently, she says it was a carjacking. And the man wanted her car, and they tussled outside. She pretended to throw her keys, and all the children were shot from the outside of the car. Danny, who was 3, Cheryl, who was 7, and Christy, who was 8 at the time. So then she drives them to the hospital after that, very, very slowly. And it's an important case because back in 1983, May 19th, when this happened, women didn't shoot their children, and they didn't murder them either. That was long before Andrea Yates, who drowned her children, and Susan Smith, who drowned her 2 boys in the South several years later. So this was a notorious case, and she's a fascinating personality profile. And I got the pleasure of sitting down with her and doing a documentary about her. And it ended up being the seminal personality profile of Diane Downs, because she's never met a lie she didn't like.
And that's, what I wanted to bring up, from your experience, I've certainly seen a lot of footage, a lot of coverage of her. I've seen that, you being there with her, what was that experience like, being so close to her, interviewing her, talking to her, and you mentioned the lying aspect of it.
Right. Well, I knew she was going to be arrested, so I called her in just before that, and I thought maybe she would bring her lawyer, but she didn't. And we sat down there for a couple of hours, and I asked her everything about her life, her views on men, the murder, and she had what haunted her the most, she said, was the image of blood coming out of her children's mouth after she murdered one of them, Cheryl, and threw her on the floorboard of the car. And then she murdered, Christy was really her favorite, and Christy was in the back seat with Danny, and Danny was paralyzed from that. And I think a lot of people really couldn't believe that a mother would do this to her children. But sitting there in the room with her, you feel a special a wavelength of evil. When you stop to think every once in a while, it would come into my brain, oh my gosh, I'm sitting here with a child killer, a baby killer. And it would ever so quickly I would get that out of my mind because it threatened to derail my questioning and trying to get to the bottom of how she did it, why she did it, and the repercussions.
You mentioned, her this being something that maybe at that time, especially, I mean, shocking any time, but especially shocking them because it was before these other public cases of mothers murdering their children.
Right.
But to this day, what is it, do you think, about Diane Downs that just sticks so much in the psyche of so many people, particularly in the Pacific Northwest?
I think it's uh, by this time, 41 years, the strange things that she says and her evil outlook on the world. And I mean, she's not the only one in prison who says that they're not guilty, but the way that she weaves these stories together is very convoluted, but it's one conspiracy theory after the other. It's like a long braid of rope that's kind of frayed at the edges all around, and she kind of untwists it, and one thing leads to another, and it's this person's fault and it's that person's fault, and there's all this skullduggery. Well, really, the only skullduggery is with her, and she can't admit it.
Looking at where we're at now with what happened yesterday, so this
Right.
hearing, can you tell us what this was? This was a virtual hearing, from what I understand.
Right. She's still down in Chowchilla, California, in the largest women's prison in the world, I think. And so she was like by Zoom, like we are. And then there was the parole board. And then there were a couple of people listening by phone. And that one of them was her brother, who wants her to come live with him if she gets out.
And so what was it she was trying to accomplish with this hearing?
Oh, well, this is, I think, her fourth, yeah, I think it's her fourth parole hearing. She wants the parole board to release her. She can only go to the parole board every 10 years. So let's see, she's 70-ish now. She's probably only got one, maybe two more chances to get out. So she was really fighting with all her might. My favorite quote, talking about what she would do when she got out, because she doesn't have any money, is that she could be a greeter at Walmart. That was one of her job ideas, or she could work at Burger King. So wouldn't that be a surprise if she got out and she was at your neighborhood Walmart, somebody who shot their children in cold blood. Two of them survived, by the way.
And this is something that she brought up in this yesterday. And so this parole hearing, you mentioned she can do it every 10 years. Has she been trying this every 10 years since the conviction?
Oh, yes, without fail. She goes to the parole board, and, she's due for this every 10 years. It's in the system. So after this, the board took it under advisement, and they'll make a determination whether she should be released or kept in prison. I don't think it sounds good for her, Greg.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be, based on past cases. Now, there is something that she brought up in this. She brought up the fact that there is some kind of new DNA evidence that they want to have submitted. Do you know what that was and what the goal is with that?
Yeah, I think I do. She tried to make it, very cloak and dagger, and she didn't want to talk about it because she's got another case coming up before the end of the year. I think it's a piece of bubble gum that was in the street that she claims was probably left by this shaggy-haired stranger, this man who tried to commandeer her car.
And she's maintaining.
And none of the evidence is still around, so I don't know. It's all been destroyed after all her appeals were through and exhausted, and she lost. all of the evidence. Her car was burned, given to the yard, the iron yard, everything is gone.
So this is some evidence she's saying that they have that they're going to be submitting at some point. What was her original sentence? Was it life in prison without parole?
No, it was life in prison plus about 50 years, um, and a parole. She could have parole hearings. At that time, it was she had to wait, I think, 20, 25 years or something to be able to get a parole hearing. And so at that time, it was every 5 years. And I always go or listen to every single one. And I thought, oh my gosh, every 5 years. And I feel kind of sorry for the parole board having to hear it. But, Diane always comes up with some new conspiracy theories. And this board is really smart. Boy, the questions that they asked, I think, are unparalleled in her case. They seem to know almost everything about her.
And what do you think the likelihood is, just to ask this, what do you think the likelihood is that the parole board grants her parole?
Nothing, and I don't think they won't. That is my guesstimate. One of the main things that they told her the last time, 10 years ago, was that she needed to get mental health testing. And she's not on any medications for mental health or anything else. And they told her to get counseling in the prison. She says she can't get counseling, but once she's paroled, there's a guy, some psychiatrist or psychologist, who says that he will help her work through this. But prison's the time to get that done. And that's what she should be working on. And I don't think they're going to take a favorable view of her not doing that. The other thing that the parole board wants from an inmate is, not only good behavior, but also that they admit their crimes and say they're sorry and are remorseful. And she's never done that. And there's a lot of people like Ann Rule, who wrote Small Sacrifices, and Doug Welch, who was the chief investigator in the case, who say she'll never come clean. The closest that she's come is by saying that this wouldn't have happened to her children if she hadn't gone out that night and stopped the car for a stranger in the road.
And that's what she was mentioning yesterday in her testimony there as well. You mentioned Ann Rule.
She got very tearful during that time, didn't she? And it was funny because that came on the heels of a 2020 interview. They've done two 2-hour specials on Diane, and they're both very good and give a good overview of the case. But in that, they asked me what I'd like to see, and I said, I know it's wishing into the wind, but I wish that she would say that she was sorry for going out that night, and that that she admits that she did this to her children, although it probably, at this point might not matter to them, or they say it doesn't matter. But I think when your perpetrator, when somebody who shoots you finally admits it, I think you breathe a little bit easier because, in essence, they were there and she shot them and they saw her shoot them point blank. So she's calling them liars.
You mentioned Ann Rule, and who, the author who covered this and so many other very large stories. You also wrote a book about her, and which all of this ties into Diane Downs as well with that coverage. Would you mind telling us, just about this and about your book that ties into this?
Okay, the book is The Rule of Crime and Me, an intimate view of Ann Rule, the mega author, shared by her friend of 30 years, and that's me. Ann and I met during the Diane Downs trial, and I showed her my documentary, and she's the one who started coining it as the seminal personality profile. And she wrote Small Sacrifices while referring to a transcript of my documentary, plus the police reports and every minute detail in the case. So after 31 years, I decided time to write about my pal Ann. So there's a lot of information about Diane Downs in there, about what it was like sitting in the room with her and interviewing her many times. It's a good read. It's easy. It's on Amazon. And if you love Ann Rule or you love true crime, it's just chock full of both of those things.
Well, Ann Jaeger, thank you for joining us, to talk about this and share your experiences. You would be, I'm very glad you had time to do this as well, to talk about what was going on there and Diane Downs and just, everything associated with that, especially with all of your coverage and of course the book as well. So thank you very much for being here. I really, really appreciate it.
I guess we won't have to do this for another 10 years.
Yeah, it seems that way. 10 years. So 10 years will be the next one when this can happen again. All right, Ann, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. All right, for everybody watching, thanks for being here. We're going to take a break. If you're watching on our live stream, the Fox 12 Oregon app or KPTV.com. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see this video end. But wherever you're finding us, thanks for doing so. We're here every weekday. We start at 1 o'clock. We get to have these longer form interviews and segments. We've been covering a lot here today. So we're just going to reset for a minute. We'll be right back. I will talk to you then. I'm Greg Nubler. This is Fox 12 Now.